Hello and welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. Lots of people have been asking us about the little V8 Lamborghinis, the family of small bulls, which are the Huracan, the Silhouette and the Yelper. They're essentially the same car but with different twists, and we'll be looking at those as we go along. But this particular car is quite interesting. It's called a Huracan Silhouette, so this is the second generation Huracan. Ferruccio Lamborghini came up with this car to rival. He was looking with a very envious eye at Ferrari with their Dino and Porsche with their 911. Now, a small-scale manufacturer at the time could never hope to compete with Porsche, but Ferrari and the Dino was a different matter. So Ferrari had their car well established, and then Bob Wallace at Lamborghini decided to, however the suggestion came about, they thought, why don't we design a small car with a mid-mounted V8, very nice sounding and sweet little engine that costs sort of sensible money, not supercar money, and it can be something that keeps the company going. And things didn't quite work out like that, actually. It ended up being quite an expensive project for them, and they weren't sold in the numbers that they thought they would sell them in. However, this is a very interesting car. This is a Silhouette. It's essentially a Targa top, an open top removable roof panel version of the Huracan. And they made 54 of them only worldwide, 54. But this car is particularly interesting because they made two prototypes of the Silhouette. This was a sort of punt on Bertoni's part. They decided to have a go at convincing Lamborghini to make them. So they came up with a styling exercise, which was the Silhouette. And it worked. Lamborghini took the bait, and this car was the result. This is actually a particularly interesting car because it's the second Silhouette ever built. They made two prototypes, and then the next 52 were essentially production cars. This is prototype number 2. Prototype number 1, we don't know where it is. It's either been destroyed or it's going to surface at some time within the next millennium, somewhere, in some far-flung corner of the world. But at the moment, and for the foreseeable future, I guess, this is the oldest and only prototype Silhouette in existence. And what we've been doing on this car is removing the engine, which would normally sit here along with the rear subframe, because this car was actually really very rusty. And James has been doing all the work on it.
That's
hello,
right.
James.
Hello.
James is a very talented metal fabricator, and what you've done, James, is essentially remade the bottom of the car, isn't it?
That's right, yes. A lot of the lower sections of the car were very rusty, so we've replaced all of that, all of the jacking points and the rear subframe mounts, the sills, all the front chassis. Just had to repair it all.
Well, you've got 3 mountings here for the rear subframe, and this one actually came away with the subframe, didn't it?
When we lowered the subframe, it stayed on the subframe, yeah. We didn't.
It was so rusty, it had nothing to hold on to.
Yeah, it was being held there by weight.
Yeah, that actually was the way a lot of the car was, wasn't it? I mean, you've had to make entire new sections for it.
The jacking points were completely, you couldn't have used them at all. Each 4 corners were rotten. The front chassis sections here were all rusty. All at the very front, the cross member, all the areas were all suspension mounts, all very rusty. It had all been covered up reasonably well, but once we started scraping, we found quite a lot.
Yeah. It was the dreaded 1970s splash it all over underseal.
That's right, yes.
And
yeah.
The thicker the underseal is, obviously the better the car is.
Better the car, yeah.
Not.
No.
It's normally hiding all sorts of horrors. This was the era of minis that were mobile swimming pools with water in the bottom of them coming up through. You could see the floor as you were, the ground as you were driving along.
Yes,
we miss those days in a way, really. But not necessarily in a mid-engined Lamborghini.
No. With effectively an engine that was almost hanging out of the car.
Yeah, exactly. It takes you back to Lancia Beta days in the 1970s. The engines used to fall out of those with alarming regularity.
That's right, yes.
But this, of course, is exaggerated by the fact that it is an open-top car. You haven't got the benefit of the roof.
No.
So that makes matters worse.
Well, structurally, it certainly does. You know, all the strength has got to be in the floor and the sills because there's no roof.
So you've remade all the sill area?
Yes, all the sills have had a repair before, which wasn't too bad, but I've had to doctor them a bit more.
Yeah.
The floors were very rusty around the edges. Yeah, so a lot of the strength of the car.
And it looks amazing now. We're just about to actually coat this now, aren't we? The job's finished. Really.
The welding is done now. Yes, it's all cosmetic from now on. Yes, that's right.
Fantastic. Great work, James.
Yes, it's
really good.
It's been a nice job. I've enjoyed doing it. I do like these jobs.
Well, this is a car that we looked at in a previous workshop catch-up. This is a Lamborghini Miura S, and we fully restored this car. James has rebuilt almost the bottom 2 or 3 inches of the whole car.
That's right.
It was that rotten. But what had actually happened with this car in the 70s is it had gone back to the factory and been converted to a Miura SV front end, which has got smooth infills around the headlights and a slightly more pointy nose and a few bits and pieces. And after we'd restored the car changed hands, and the new owner wanted it reverted back. Forget what the factory did in period. He wanted it back to as new condition and as new specification. So we actually had a whole new front end made out of sheet aluminium and sliced. You had the pleasure of slicing this, didn't you?
Cut it across the front here, just by these vents.
And we actually adapted the whole thing to fit, and you made these eyelashes from scratch.
That's right, yeah. Made all of these, just out of steel, made those.
As they were originally.
That's right, yeah. But it wasn't just that, it was obviously there was the bodywork and then there was making these vents, but making the headlights fit, making the grille fit, everything all had to be changed. All the mounts, because the headlights obviously lift up and go down, that all had to be modified and altered. It's a big job, a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yes, but it turned out very nice.
We've also painted in here black. If you look at a lot of Miuras, they actually don't do that. They don't realise that when Bertoni built them, that's how they did them. It's a little detail that people miss. I mean, you can't see the join, can you?
No, you can't. It does look really, really good. I'm really pleased with this job.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this car, we're waiting for the front fog lights now, and this car is ready to go then. It's all great. It looks very different to how it did, really.
That's right, yes, yeah.
Bit scary.
Yes,
but
yes.
It's a fantastic job. And you managed to blend this without doing anything drastic, like using loads of filler and things like that.
it was welded in nicely, and then obviously straightened it, leveled it all up, and then we painted the front of the car, and this is the results.
Aces.
Very nice.
Very good. Well, this is another interesting project, isn't it, James?
Yes,
You've been busy with this one too.
Yes, indeed.
This is a fiberglass Ferrari 308 GTB, which they made precious few of actually, and is quite a coveted car now because they're lighter than the steel cars and they drive really well. And there used to be this myth, I remember, about, it's fiberglass, it won't rust.
It certainly does. You just don't see it.
No, it's all hidden.
All hidden.
In fact, with this car, this is actually a really nice car. It comes from a very good home. It's very well looked after. But look at this.
Well, this is where we first got a hint of the problem. Around the screen it started to bubble, because this little piece here is steel. Everything else on the outside is fiberglass.
Yep.
So by the time we saw this bubbling away here, inside in the structure of the car there was already extensive rust. It was quite serious. So we've taken off the fiberglass, the body, the front end anyway. All these sections here, which are where the quite heavy headlights mounts and motors sit. So this was all rotten, but you couldn't see. This is a bit we haven't yet started to repair, but this is what it was like. This piece now is
it's a bit structurally challenged, that piece.
It is a little bit, yes, very much. But it was, the whole chassis down on this front section here was completely gone. That's all had to be replaced. The mounts that support the radiator, which is obviously quite heavy, they were all very rusty, so they've had to be replaced. And the next thing is to finish off this, obviously, and then carry on cleaning.
This bit here is even more structurally challenged.
Yeah, that's.
In fact, that's the bit that was the giveaway for the owner, because he opened the front lid and then used the. Not fantastically strong.
Not at all. No.
But we found more sinister things. I mean, this is all new as well, round the front of the chassis here.
Yeah.
But the main structural chassis tubes have actually rusted quite badly on this car as well.
Yes, and the problem you got with these cars is the main tubes, as you say, the chassis tubes are encased in fiberglass.
Yeah,
you don't see it.
Yeah.
So but once we've stripped it all away, what we're left with is that's remains of the outer sill, that is, and the door shut, which, as you can see, is very poor.
Yeah.
But the whole chassis running along the front there is holed front to back, but all completely rotted out.
I can actually put my
that's right.
Put my fingers in there.
Yeah, and it's both sides. Both sides are the same.
But I mean, this car, not to put too fine a point on it, even a 10 mile an hour bump.
Oh, it falls to pieces. Yeah, all the structure is gone. I mean, all this is important strength wise. This has got a tube up here that's gone. Yeah, you wouldn't have even want to have driven it off the curb, I don't think. It would have broken.
I mean, this is scary because it begs the question, once you start cutting beneath the surface, how many of these cars are like this?
I think with a 308, unless it's had a very, very easy life or it's been restored, you'll have these problems.
Yeah. And this is better because it's advantage because although this skin is fiberglass, and that's the giveaway with the fiberglass 308 is the join there, which the steel cars don't have, steel A-post, fiberglass roof. Without that, on the likes of the GTS, the Targa car, even though they're beefed up, the same thing can still happen.
That's right, yes.
And it's even worse. It's like the Lamborghini Silhouette. It's an open car. It's a Targa top car.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty frightening to think that you could be driving. I mean, this is a 150 mile an hour car plus.
Yeah, no, it's scary the damage that you could do with one of these.
But you've been busy. It looks fantastic. The bodywork hangs off this, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, right on these corners here is where the whole front body sits on, and then the bumper attaches from underneath. And these points here are where the headlights mounts.
Well, it's looking very different, James. It really is.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a sort of medium-term project as well. This is the Ferrari Queen Mary, the 365 GT4 2+2. It was called the Queen Mary because it was a very large car for Ferrari at the time, a V12 with 2+2 seating, and it was called the Queen Mary because it was big, just like the Queen Mary ocean liner. Simple, really. But a bit disrespectful. It's a really nice car, and this particular car is going to be fabulous when it's finished. It's really, really not far off now. We've rebuilt the engine with some pistons, specially made forged pistons from our friends in the US, CP Carrillo, and we've completely rebuilt the engine. Whatever needed to be done has been done. All new bearings, exhaust valves, because the exhaust valves can break on them because they're hollow stemmed. We're just in the process of putting the gearbox back in this, the 5-speed manual gearbox, which is the original box, and that's been fully rebuilt as well, new synchromesh, etc. So we're going to be starting this car up very, very shortly, and Craig's been busy retrimming the whole interior. The owner wasn't happy with the interior. It was quite a rough, cheap black leather that they'd used to retrim it over in the States. For whatever reason, it happens. So what we've done is we've got hold of the original Connolly Vomol leather that the car would have been supplied with new originally, and we've retrimmed it in that with a colour from the Ferrari colour palette that the owner has chosen, which goes really nicely with the dark blue metallic. But there's been one or two colourful revelations along the way with this interior. So I'm going to speak with Craig about that in a few minutes and just see some of the nice little gifts that the previous trimmers had left us. Well, here we are, Shay Craig, aka your little bit of the workshop, your little domain. This is a bit of the old leather that was in the car. Well, I say old, it's been recently done, but it's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, the texture and...
It's like cardboard.
Yeah.
Whereas that,
it's lovely.
Completely different noise, apart from anything else. And they haven't got the flutes right, have they?
No. As you can see, the middle ones are okay, and then they've thought, oh no, we need to make them balance out, and they've put two big ones at the end. I don't know why. So when we did the new covers, we started from scratch really on them.
Okay, and the new covers that you're talking about, this is all Connolly Vomol hide, exactly as it would have, well, not exactly, but as very close as we can get it to the original leather. This is vegetable tanned nitrocellulose coated leather, and this is truly, this is the creme de la creme of, or the beige de la beige of automotive leather, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great to work with, and it really does feel and look expensive as well once it's finished.
And have you got a piece that we can have a look at? Yeah,
these are just offcuts, what we've got left.
And this is natural grain, isn't it?
Yes.
So some bits of it, depending on where it is on the cow, some bits of it are smooth and some bits of it are rough.
Yeah.
And you have to actually line up bits, don't you, alongside?
Yeah, but when planning, cutting different panels, we can't have one panel that's quite, heavy grained and then a smoother panel. They have to sort of match, or at least look natural anyway.
Yes.
So you've got to be on your toes. You've got to be canny when you're cutting them out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it looks fantastic. This is one of the seat backs, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world, but it's not exactly, it wouldn't be very nice to put very expensive leather over that, really, would it? A bit of building material. What have you done there, Craig?
Well, that was glued onto the foam, and it was glued onto the diaphragm, which was perished anyway, and they'd also glued on some Pirelli webbing, so we had to take that apart. The foam was falling apart, so we rebuilt the foam up, and then we cut birch ply back to give it some more gumption, and we re-webbed it up at the back. So is
that back to how it would have been?
Well,
new?
it's as good as damn it, really. Yeah.
Language, Timothy. I am joking.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, yes, right. Oh, brilliant. Right. Well, that's. I mean, it looks beautiful, and the owner is justifiably delighted with it. So, yeah, it's really just made the whole difference to the car. This sort of dreary, horrible stuff that scratches.
It's not good.
To this, and this is unscived as well, so it's quite thick.
Yes. Yeah.
Because skiving, they put each corner on a machine and stretch it to try and get more for your money out of the leather. But Craig, it looks absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Really good job. Well done.
Thanks.
Well, if you've been following the channel or watching it, you'll know that a few videos ago we had the pleasure and the honour of bringing back to life Ferruccio Lamborghini's personal Countach. We do quite a lot of work on Countaches, and this particular one is quite striking because of its colour. This is an LP400 S2, low bodies as it's called, same as Mr. Lamborghini's car, as is this one behind here. They're all actually made within a few weeks of each other. But the interesting thing about this car is its colour. In Lamborghini speak, this was called Rame Colorado, which means Colorado copper. Lamborghini at this time tended to name their colours after places quite often. You had Rosso Sevilla, which is Seville red, Rosso Granada, obviously. So they chose this really mad, wacky late 70s, early 80s colour. The funny thing is, what goes around comes around, because for years you couldn't get this colour on any car in the 90s and the noughties. And all of a sudden, bang, coppers and golds and brown metallics are back in with a vengeance. So here we are, this car, not that it ever particularly went out of fashion, but this car is right bang in there now, and we're just bringing this car to life. We're doing a few jobs on it. Brakes have been all refurbished. The car actually came with no rear anti-roll bar, which is not great because it affects handling. So we're going to have one of those made to a sample and then fit it to the car and set the whole car up, and it's on its way back. So this is a short to medium term project. Well, one of the other projects that's been moving along is this car here, the Lamborghini Miura S, that's sold at auction for, it's in the public domain, so it's no secret, £1.25 million in November 2019. And we're well on with the restoration on this car. We're on schedule and on budget, which is brilliant. So we're hoping this car, at the moment, even with COVID restrictions, we've managed to keep chuntering on with this, and we hope that this car is going to be ready in November 2021. So we're getting to the stage now where there's big differences happening in the appearance of the car. We've had all the suspension rebuilt. The engine is almost finished. We're having some special camshafts made for the engine out of harder, more modern materials, the N40B. The originals are made of the technology that was available in 1970, but it is a softer material. And we're going to be actually seeing this car move forward quite significantly. As I say, it's a bit like a house renovation. Everything looks a complete mess, and then all of a sudden things start coming together. James has welded a lot of the front and rear floors and chassis sections in this car. We've remade new ones, swaged with the original specification folds and creases, so it's indistinguishable from how it left the factory. We try to use higher quality metal, and yeah, this car's come along. We've just put all the fittings on, like door catches and things like that, so that when it goes for painting they can align everything and make sure it's absolutely to their satisfaction, that we're presenting them with something that they're very happy. They've got no excuses to turn out a fantastic paint job, basically, to put it crudely. So this is moving along really well, and yeah, we'll see some changes in this in the near future. Well, another car that's been skulking in the background while we've been making these videos is this beast, the Rambo Lambo, the LM002. This originally started off as a military project for Lamborghini, but it's turned into something very different, really. It turned into a super luxurious, very fast 4x4 for the time, capable of 125 miles an hour. It really was ahead of its time, because cars like this didn't exist in the 80s particularly. Even the Range Rover couldn't sort of approach that performance, really. It is, of course, helped by the fact that it's got a whopping great V12 in it. This particular one's one of the very last, with the Diablo engine in it. And yeah, we've done almost, I suppose, a 50% restoration on it, because it's basically a very good vehicle. It needed a repaint. The paintwork was in quite a bad way. The door hinges were seized on it, which is quite common on these. And we've redone all the suspension and the running gear under the car, because that was pretty unpleasant looking, really. So we're going to concentrate on cleaning the engine compartment up. We're putting all the trim back in the car, treating everything, bringing everything back to life. And this car is not far off being finished now, actually, and ready to go back to its new owner. Well, this is another really interesting project that we've got here. This is a Lamborghini Miura SV, which is the last of the Lamborghini Miuras. And this is what's called a split sump car, which is one of the last 92 Miuras, which they fitted a limited slip differential, a ZF limited slip diff in the car. And in order for that to work properly, they had to separate the engine and gearbox oil. So they went from one lubrication system for everything, as most Miuras had, and they blocked off all the open bits between the engine and the gearbox, made them two dedicated oil supplies so that you could put limited slip additive gear oil in the gearbox and engine oil in the engine. But this car has come in for restoration. It's originally, what makes it really interesting is it was originally lime green. You can see here the original paint from new in 1971, and we're going to return it to the lime green colour, and there are very few Miura SVs in the iconic lime green colour. There's probably two colours that stand out with Miuras most. One is the orange and one is the lime green. People love them in those colours, and to find one that was that colour originally that can be returned to that colour is really super interesting. So we're going to do that. The car's basically sound. We stripped down the engine and we've started work on this car, so we'll monitor the progress of this car as we go. Well, that concludes another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. Thanks for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share, and we'll be back with something else very soon.